Peace. I'm your brother Crumb, and you are now watching CRUMB TV.
You are now watching CRUMB TV.
You're watching CRUMB TV.
This is Prema Osset in Los Angeles, Leimert Park, and you are now watching CRUMB TV.
You are watching CRUMB TV.
We're watching CRUMB TV.
You are now watching CRUMB TV. So subscribe.
I am the Grand Sheikess, Unity Temple number 80, More Science Temple of America, and you are watching CRUMB TV.
Yo, this is that kid 179. You're now watching CRUMB TV.
CRUMB TV.
Brother Red Pill representing Know the Ledge, one half of the Twin Pillars. I am here rocking with CRUMB TV.
Now you are watching CRUMB TV.
You can find me on CRUMB TV.
You can catch me on CRUMB TV.
This is Chief Colonial here at CRUMB TV.
I am Joy Allen of the Memoirs of a Karmic Dynasty in the CRUMB TV studio.
Honored to be on your program, brother.
Peace.
Peace.
CRUMB TV.
Hey, you are now watching CRUMB TV.
CRUMB TV.
Hey, we in Chicago, y'all, and y'all watching CRUMB TV.
It's your brother, Timbuktu. I say.
You are now watching CRUMB TV.
You in Chi-Town finest. You're in Inglewood, always up to no good.
Man, I'm telling my brother Crumb.
You're watching CRUMB TV.
I'm your humble brother, and you are watching CRUMB TV. Reporting live from the Wild Hunters, Southside Chicago.
And you now watching CRUMB TV.
And you're watching CRUMB TV.
CRUMB TV, baby. Hey.
CRUMB TV.
If you could, please repeat after me. Peace. Ashe. Islam. Namaste. Hotep. Grand Rising. Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum salam. Bom dia. Oseo. Halito. Whatever the greeting is in your respective language, I am your humble brother Crumb, here for another installation of, actually family, it's not even really CRUMB TV. Let's keep it 5 trillion. This is actually the Minister of Information. This is actually Red Pill. You already know what it is, family. With that said, let's get right into it. Peace and love, Minister. How are you?
All is well, brother. Peace and light. I was trying to tap in and catch the intro. But peace and love, everybody. I'm in the building. Hey, man, get your pen and your paper. All my disciples, all my master students, y'all know what time it is, man. Class is in session. Tuck the kids away. Get you a hot cup of toddy, hot cup of tea, and let's learn, man. Let's go.
We have none other than Red Pillar himself. Peace and love, Almighty. How are you?
Peace and love to the family. Greetings. Good evening to everybody in the building. Shout out to CRUMB TV. CRUMB. Shout out to MOI. All of the KTLians. What's good?
Glad to have all of the family in the building. I say let's get right into it. Actually, no. Let's kind of take the first 5 minutes to make any announcements, anything we got going on, whatever the case may be. Red Pillar, please, if you don't mind.
Yes, indeed. The reminders that I want to share with the family is this Sunday that just passed. Me, Blue Pillar, and Queen Vicky Dillard, we did a monumental presentation entitled When in Rome, the Jason Months. 4 hours of some powerful information. The information was so prophetic that the next day, literally, the receipts started giving. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, not even the next day, that night, right after with the BET Awards, it was a whole bunch of things taking place just to show the effectiveness of the information. So yeah, that right there is very important, especially for these next upcoming months, the Jason months leading up to the election. It's very important to know what is going on. You're not going to hear it on CNN. You know what I mean? The information that we're going to be delivering is very imperative. So yeah, that replay is available. Moving forward for this month, we have Fear of a Blackamoor Messiah. We're going to be presenting that at the end of the month. And we also have a workshop called Kid Journey, where we'll be teaching the youth how to take information and make their own animated series, cartoons / short films utilizing 6 tools of AI.
Very impressive. Family, tap all the way in. Red Pillar, he's jumping like Jordan. Minister, can you tell the family, where we can find you at, any of the details that you may have for us, please, and thank you.
Yeah, no doubt, man. You can find me on Instagram at the Minister Informing. Over on TikTok, Misinformation. Of course, YouTube page, I was jumping Misinformation. And of course, no other place, man. Only on CRUMB TV. Nowhere else. Y'all know what it is, man.
Definitely much gratitude. Thank you both. So with that said, Indigenous America, the Roots Conspiracy to uproot Indigenous America. Minister, I wanted to ask you, where should we start?
What I want to do is pass the mic to Brother Red Pill and see which sector of history he wanted to start in. I don't want to start on my tangent and go all the way through history, but I wanted to find out more so along the lines what we thinking as far as like you want to bring up the actual Roots documentary and go from that perspective, or just get into the Roots of America period.
Let's get right into the Roots documentary, the plagiarism. I could pull up an article and we could go right into it, so we could, begin this. This is evidence A. You know what I mean? So we have to preface our argument before we begin to dismantle all of the lies and whatnot. We have to show empirical proof that Roots was plagiarized. This is something that they did not teach us. They actually blocked a documentary that showed all of the lies from American television, but the family from across the pond, they got it through the BBC, but we didn't get it over here. So it's our duty to get this information out.
Wow.
So can I share it?
Please.
Okay. All right. So shout out to the good brother Ishmael Bey. All right. He was the one who authored this article. If you do Google, you could find multiple articles about the Alex Haley and the Roots plagiarism lawsuit. Okay. So Alex Haley and Roots plagiarism changed American Indian identity, right? Unbeknownst to many of us, because there's so many factors that are involved. Me, I'm a 70s baby. So I remember the days when the grandparents and the great-grandparents would tell us where they were from, okay? And they would tell us that there was lies being told through what they called the idiot box at that time. Unfortunately, for the children that were born in the 90s and the 2000s, you're not privy to a lot of that information because just of the times that you were born in. It was a lot going on right there. So we were privy to the fact that there was a lot of uproar in the Black community around the times of the Roots TV series, one of the biggest TV series for Black people. We up until that time, we were not used to seeing so many of us on a television screen. Okay, they came out with this TV series. It spanned. It was a smash hit, but it was being protested and boycotted by a lot of Black communities. A lot of people were in uproar because they was like, something is not right about this goddamn series. We not feeling it. Come to find out, the whole time, Alex Haley, who was riding off of the success of the Malcolm X documentary, the autobiography of Malcolm X, in which he was also accused of plagiarizing and also accused of lying because Malcolm X wasn't alive to say, yeah, I told him all of this stuff.
Wow.
He went ahead and rode the success of Malcolm X and everything. And of course, when Malcolm X documentary came out, the thing that Malcolm X was pushing was we was African and we was Muslims. Okay. So he rode that and he came out with this Roots documentary, and then he got slammed by a European who had a book called The African. So I'm going to read everything so we could all have a better understanding about what took place in our society, how we got socially engineered in the late 70s, okay? In the late 70s. In 1977, Corlander filed a suit in federal district court in New York charging that defendant Haley had access to and substantially copied from The African. The material he copied constituted the framework, life, and substance of Roots. I don't know if people understand what that means. The framework, picture a house, right? The framework of a house. If you remove the framework of a house, you have no house. The life. If you remove the life from a body, you have no body. And the substance, if you remove the substance from something, it's without roots. Coincidentally, the name of the goddamn book is Roots, but everything about Roots is a lie. So he says without The African, Roots would have been a very different and less successful novel. And indeed, it is doubtful that Mr. Haley could have written Roots without The African. Mr. Haley copied the language, the thoughts, the attitudes, the incidents, the situations, the plot, and the character. Okay? Haley denied seeing The African before he wrote Roots. But what did a minority student studies professor swear under oath? In his answer to an interrogation question, Haley stated, "Neither I nor any person acting on my behalf or in cooperation with me has read the work The African, but I intend to read it in the near future." Right? A nice little boule answer that people, a little snug answer that they'll give in their interrogations. But lo and behold, however, on direct examination during the trial, Haley under oath was asked, "Had you ever read the book The African prior to the publication of Roots?" He answered, "I had not." However, after the trial, in a sworn affidavit by Joseph Brucock, a teacher of Black literature at Skidmore College, Mr. Brucock states, during either 1970 or 1971, Alex Haley came to Skidmore to lecture on the research he had been doing for a book, which was at that time to be called Before This Anger. I went to his lecture, and after the conclusion of the lecture, spent some time in conversation with Mr. Haley at a reception following his talk. During our conversation at the reception, I mentioned the book The African to him, and he seemed very interested. I drove 3 miles back home, obtained my copy, and brought it back to the reception. I then read several sections of The African to Mr. Haley, and after having pointed out some parts I thought especially good in the book, I gave my own personal copy of The African to Mr. Haley. Mr. Haley thanked me for giving him my copy of The African and said he would find it very useful. So, how many passages from The African appeared in Roots? Plaintiffs charged that more than 80 passages in Roots had their origins in The African. Okay. Plaintiffs stated, in addition to copying the language and the expressions from The African, Haley copied attitude, reaction, situation, storyline, plot, and characters. So you mean to tell me that Fiddler is not real? Kissy? God damn it. The African, huh? Chicken George? God damn it. The African served as a blueprint for Haley and guided him in formulating Roots. So he's basically, imagine if somebody stole your rhyme book, okay, and took your hooks, took your melodies, took your bars, took every goddamn thing, and then sold a diamond record, a diamond album, went crazy. The shit just blew up. The publisher, when they hear about the fact that you might have bit somebody's work, after the record label and everybody is making millions of dollars, they're not going to take that album off of the shelf. The same thing happened with the publisher of the Roots. They were making so much money on his book that they were like, listen, We're not going to acknowledge this lawsuit. We don't care about what's going on. The TV company was invested, the book people were invested, the publisher. So what they did was they decided to just cut the check, okay, and say, you know what, let's cut the check and then bury it and whatnot. What did expert witness Michael Wood, professor of English, Columbia University, say about the copyings in his expert's report? He said the evidence of copying from the African in both the novel and the television dramatization of Roots is clear and irrefutable. Roots takes from the African phrases, situations, ideas, aspects of style, and of plot. But more important still, Roots finds in the African essential elements for its depiction of such things as a slave's thoughts of escape, the psychology of an old slave, the habits of mind of the hero, and the whole sense of life on the infamous slave ship. Such things are the life of a novel. And when they appear in Roots, they are the life of someone else's novel. Source: Harold Corlander versus Alex Haley. For all of my Moors, they like to do they research and whatnot, they case study. Here you have it. What did presiding district court judge Robert J. Ward say on the record about Haley's copying during the trial? He said, copying there is, period. What was the outcome of the trial? After 5 weeks of testimony, on the day the final arguments were to be made, this statement was issued. The suit has been amicably settled out of court. Alex Haley acknowledges and regrets that various materials from the African by Harold Corlander found their way into his books. Roots. How does something find their way into your book, bro? Did it sneak through the back door, or did it go through the side door? What did Judge Ward say after the trial? Alex Haley perpetuated a hoax on the public. The Roots of Alex Haley. And there's a BBC television documentary that they blocked, and that's where you get the information. Alex Haley lost a $650,000 lawsuit to a white author citing plagiarism in Roots. Do you know how much that was back then? A lot. Okay. So just to give you some insight on who Harold is, Harold Corlander was an American writer who authored more than 30 theatrical productions, novels, folklore tales, and sociology papers. His expertise included Haitian, African Caribbean, Afro-American, and Native American cultures. Corlander wrote The African, a fictional account of the slave's journey from Africa to the United States. Alexander Murray Palmer Haley was an American writer and journalist who specialized in historical novels. He wrote the 1976 book Roots, the saga of an American family. The book has become synonymous with U.S. slavery and the toll it took on African slaves.
Wow.
So here's some more articles for everybody that wants to. I will drop this link in the chat for my researchers who want to take this information and go ahead and debunk it. Okay.
That's crazy.
Let me see. Can I jump in and discredit this dude? Is that okay, family? Okay, check this out. So Alex Haley, it says this is from latebloomer.com. Alex Haley, his inspiring journey from college dropout ...
Right, he's Kanye before Kanye.
Amen. Amen, church. Haley parlayed this military experience into a civilian career. He was on Coast Guard. He started as an assignment writer for Reader's Digest, then moved on to Playboy, where he initiated the prestigious Playboy interview series. He landed an interview with Malcolm X, who distrusted him at first.
Right, he's an agent.
So now, if you go and look, it says, this is according to New York Times, the autobiography of Malcolm X evolved from a Playboy interview and an interview of the Nation of Islam for Reader's Digest. This dude been riding our coattail everywhere he go.
That's crazy.
Digest, bro.
Readers, but remember who is financing this dude? The dude who's financing him is none other than Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner paid Alex Haley to write the Malcolm X autobiography.
That's crazy.
That's Ashra Kwesi.
That's Ashra Kwesi, bro.
What?
What? It says, though Haley felt he never really knew King, he eventually developed a unique rapport with the charismatic Malcolm X, even if they did not always see eye to eye. The first thing Malcolm said to his future collaborator was, "You're another one of those white man tools sent to spy."
There you go.
Trust your first instinct.
There you go.
And once after their book came out, Haley called Malcolm the angriest black demagogue in America. That's slander. That's slander.
Straight up. Call him a demagogue.
It was a miracle the book ever happened. Forbidden to use a tape recorder during their interviews, Haley typed as Malcolm spoke or wrote down what he said on legal pads. At the beginning, Malcolm revealed little personal information, but one evening when Haley asked him about his mother, he suddenly opened up. After that, no question was off limit. Haley came to know only the man's public rage, but also his private tenderness. You an agent, bro. He called it in the beginning.
Wow.
Let me share a little bit more on this. The controversy surrounding Roots, to give some information.
The question is, what is considered West India? The answer is the West Indies, including.
My bad. Not that.
Try EJ.
Let me pull this up. So there was controversy surrounding Roots. Do you see the screen right here from the International Travel News?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this article by Wayne, this author, he traveled to the place that was in the book Roots, even though it's been debunked as completely fiction and not real. He because it was so popular, and we have accounts like this about places in Africa that basically was like, well, if you say so, then shit, let's make it a tourist destination. You know what I mean? Like, historically it wasn't that, but because Americans are coming back to say, hey, we're looking for these slave quarters and we're looking for all of this slave evidence, they're like, well, shit, over there, you know what I mean? Let's take pictures, buy some of these fucking these fruits from us, you know? So part 1 of 3. Having never recovered from my addiction to Saturday matinee double features in the 1930s, I am still fascinated by the making of movies and specifically the actual filming locations, visiting them whenever possible. If a story has important historical or social value, as the book and the TV miniseries Roots had, then it's all the more interesting. On a trip I made to the Gambia in West Africa in 2007, one of the high points was visiting sites that were featured in Alex Haley's 1970s books and the subsequent television miniseries that was widely seen around the world, right? So people around the world, when they have an idea about who we are in the Americas, when they have this quote unquote depiction of who we are, where we come from, and our whole history, the template in which they are learning from, okay, and we're talking about from the generations from like 6 or 7 generations, not the great I'm talking about from the 70s babies, the 80s, the 90s, how we're viewed when TV became 500 channels and satellite TV and cable and everything. This was the first depiction that people got of us to tell our history. Okay, they did not see the indigenous versions of us. They did not see the versions of us when we were in Kemet. They did not see the Moorish versions of us. They saw this. Okay, a plagiarized story that was a goddamn lie, a fantasy, a fiction. That's what they saw. Okay, and subsequently, of course, you already know the people who were behind the Hollywood production was, of course, the small hats. Okay, same people who lied about their own goddamn stories. So, to refresh your memory, Alex Haley's book was inspired by his family's oral history about the life of an African slave from the Gambia, Kunta Kinte, who was claimed to be some 200 years ago an early relative of the Haley family. In research for his book, Haley visited the Gambia in the fishing village Jufure, said to be the home of Kunta Kinte. I might be chopping that word up. If anybody knows the pronunciation, please help me. Shortly after reaching manhood, the story relates, Kunta Kinte was captured by white slavers and was sent, as were ultimately an estimated 20 million Black Africans, to labor on a plantation in the Americas. The profitable slave trade was, in cycles during the 15th to the 19th centuries, dominated by the British, Dutch, French, or Portuguese. Although the miniseries Gambia sequences actually were filmed in Georgia, it was with great interest that I visited the village of Jufura, as well as James Island and the surrounding areas where Black Africans themselves mostly were responsible for the capture and selling of other Black Africans to eager white traders. This part of West Africa was the principal location for slave trading ports, and many slave trading sites have been preserved and or restored as reminders of this grim period. The British were instrumental in finally forcing the abolition of the African slave trade in 1829. Do you know what restored means? Just basically built, to say, you know what, we're gonna, you know, because you got missionaries over there from the church now in Africa and around this time. So they're helping to build the lie on that side of the continent to say, you know what, we're going to build these little slave castles. We're going to build, or we're going to repurpose it, or we're going to restore some things and just say that's what it was. As described in Haley's story, the 18th century Black African slave trade and its consequences are generally accepted as reasonably accurate. His epic TV miniseries brought the dramatic realities of life on our pre-Civil War Southern plantation to millions of American living rooms in January 1977. Like I said, for those who were born in the 90s, you were born into the lie. You can't even talk to me about what's real and what's not. You was born into the lie. You was not here before there was a fucking lie. You didn't know what people were thinking before they were lied to. You didn't know the way of life. You would have to ask somebody, how were things? Why were people great grandmothers saying you're not from no goddamn across the pond? You're not from Africa. You're not from anywhere but here. You know what I mean? Go back home to where you was from. They were telling Negroes in the city that you was from down south. And the people down south was like, you were from other places in the South. That's what they were saying before Roots came out. There was a humongous protest in our communities after this series came out because it changed the trajectory of a lot of things. Okay. Jufura is a typical small African village of individual primitive homes on the Gambia River. From our ship, Hapag Lloyd's 4-star expedition ship MS Bremen, we were transported to a small but substantial wooden dock there in groups of 6 to 8 in standard rubber Zodiacs. On the day of my visit, there was a row of souvenir stands at one edge of the village, but most families were cooking a midday meal over small outdoor fires, paying little attention to the 100 or so visitors wandering around, except to respond cheerfully to our hellos and to give permission for taking photos when politely asked, right? The same way that they do in Africa is a photo shoot. Okay, they use these villages as a photo shoot. They ain't coming to leave no money. They not coming to help nobody. They just rummaging like goddamn tourists and whatnot. The same way that they did it, they used to do that in Harlem. They would walk past us and take pictures like we was animals. They'd be on a double-decker buses and whatnot, snapping pictures of us like we was gorillas. Okay, and wouldn't say a word to us. They wouldn't even break bread with nobody selling nothing. They just coming around taking pictures like they always do, exploiting and colonizing. James Island, nearby in mid-river, have been a holding fortress for accumulating slaves for shipment downriver to the coastal trading centers. Built in the 1670s, it was subsequently fought over, destroyed, and rebuilt several times and held in some sequence by the British, the Dutch, the French, and reportedly a couple of pirate ships. The island has been severely eroded, and now at maybe only an acre or two is a fraction of its original size. Water is lapping very close to the remaining foundations of the heavy stone ruins. I thought that some large baobab trees close to the water gave the island an exotic, forlorn look. The rest of the story. Haley's book and TV miniseries were widely popular, presenting in a graphic and realistic way the horrors of the slave trade. The book was translated into 26 languages and sold 8.5 million copies. Okay, that's what you call indoctrination. That's what you call a successful indoctrination. That's what you call social engineering. Haley was awarded the Pulitzer Prize, and they won multiple Emmys for the TV series that riveted us to the tube with its 12-hour marathon presented over 8 consecutive nights. My father told me when Roots came on, the streets was empty. That was the biggest event on TV at that time. Nobody could ignore it. Like I said, we were not used to seeing our people on TV like that. They grabbed every single melanated star at that time and put them in a Root series and whatnot. It was a smash. Okay? It was a smash. Haley's relating of his family's origins had been presented as an accurate compilation of facts, resulting from 10 years of his genealogical and historic research in Africa and in some of our Southern American states. Soon after publication of the book in 1976, historians and other literary investigators unearthed numerous serious flaws that suggested the unpleasant truth that not only was Roots a work that contained fiction, inconsistencies, and plagiarism, but its text was essentially written by someone else. Critics did allow that as a novel, it had some merit. If you have access to the internet, reproduce my eye-opening web surfing by punching up Alex Haley on Google. It will lead you to Alex Haley hoax, then to investigator Phillip Noble, who claimed that Roots was one of the great literary hoaxes of modern times, and then to the Village Voice archives, as well as a description of a BBC Roots documentary expose that aired in Britain, but not the US. Haley died in 1992. family members continue to deny the validity of the negative issues surrounding the book Roots, the saga of an American family. None of this at this date diluted the impact on me of the miniseries or of visiting the sites that were typical of the last views seen of Africa by some 20 million unfortunate Native Africans. So he said, regardless of what he found out, the shit to be real, I mean, it to be fake, it didn't stop the grip or the programming that it had on him. He was like, I'm still underneath this spell. You know what I'm talking about? I'm still underneath this spell. Okay. And like I said, the publishing companies had the caucasity to give the Roots reboot. Okay. They did about 5 or 6 Roots after that, up until the one where the nigga T.I. was in it. And Mr. Expeditiously, he don't read, obviously. He didn't read a goddamn Google because he would have been like, I can't be a part of this because this shit is fake.
Well, here's what I want to do. It's a lot of information you just dropped that I was unaware of. One, I had no idea she was plagiarized. That's the first thing. Two, I don't know at what point I began to look at these movies a little bit different, bro. But I began to look at these movies a totally different, because even within the movie Roots, they were dropping jewels. But if you wasn't aware what was going on, and I had to go back and watch this shit, right?
Right.
I'm like, they dropping heat in the movie. Now, Roots did a thing to our people. I'm not going to deny that shit. But even within the movie itself, they was dropping some heat. And I'm just now discovering that everybody that watched Roots, 12 Years a Slave, Django, The Butler, I did a breakdown on my TikTok page of all these movies, but I was showing you the scenes within the movie of what was going on. Now, this is a scene in the movie Roots. I'm going to go through Roots real quick. I'm going to go 12 Years a Slave to show you our 2 scenes. I'm going to break the scenes down about, yes, depicting us in a fucked up way, but you got to remember, in this time frame, we just had Soul Train hit the airways, Negroes just dancing, shucking and jiving the whole time. You know what I'm saying? Flip Wilson in comedy had a dress on. Okay. We just got off the damn Chitlin circuit from going from the plantations singing Negro spirituals to the pulpits, to the church choirs, to the juke joints. Black people was getting exploited all over, not just in Hollywood. Hollywood came along last. Those Yehudis had got us on the music scene already. And you begin to see our music change earlier on with music. Now, the depiction of Negroes in movies like Roots, this is no subsequence, because they just had showed not a long time ago in the White House, the what's the film they showed? What's the name of the film?
Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation.
Right.
So the negative connotation of Negroes on the screen had already been sought, that we're lazy, we're lethargic, we're criminals, we're evil, we're ill-willed, etc., etc. Now, Negroes in the 1960s and 70s, remember, they had a strong grasp on who they were. It was power to our people.
Power to
it
the
was
people.
Power to the people.
That's
now, what I always say is the children or grandchildren in the 60s, I'm sorry, the people in the 60s and the early 70s were the grandchildren and children of the movers and the shakers in the 20s. Because in the 20s, it was a real strong movement in the 20s with so-called Negroes. Noble Drew Ali, strong movement. Sweet Daddy Grace, strong movement. Father Divine, big movement. Negroes were at large in America. So something had to be done. In the 1920s, you also had, me and CRUMB talked about the other day, eugenics popping off, trying to eradicate more Negroes. Albert Plecker comes along, reclassification. So there was a lot going on in the scope. So now film is coming, late 60s, 70s.
the only picture you would see of Negroes were as slaves or as pimps, and our women as slave women or as whores. That's all we saw on TV in the 70s. Comedy, like I said again, Flip Wilson, Red Fox.
Yep.
Richard Pryor's a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
Dirty comedy, etc. There was no real positive image of Negroes on TV in that time era, but you had plenty of white shows. Leave It to Beaver, the Andy Griffin Show,
Highway to Heaven.
Highway to Heaven. Come on. They were even showing you at that point in time the cowboy, the westerns, the Ponderostas,
spaghetti westerns. Yep.
Our goofy ass rooting for the Cowboys, killing our ancestors.
Facts. John Wayne and
we
all
didn't know no better.
Look, Ronald Reagan.
He was a movie star.
He was a movie star. Okay,
so let's hop into this clip real quick. Now I'm gonna set it up. This is Kizzy talking to Kunta Kinte or Toby, which in the movie they end up falling in love. Toby or Kunta Kinte is now played by the father from Good Times. And this is an exchange. Toby is from Africa. I'm going to show you a scene right after this scene of Phillip explaining to the other Negroes what an African is. And he's going to tell them, y'all ain't never seen an African before. Like, what the fuck? Who are he talking to then? Those are not Africans? No, they're not Africans. Let me show you the difference. Check this out.
Mandinka. What food stuff that you talking about? That's African. I ain't no African. Well, I'm Mandinka. We're proud people. And I'm American. I was born here. My mammy and my daddy was born here. And my daddy's daddy. I ain't no African.
Right in the mother freaking movie. She told, listen, I ain't no African. He told her, you got a Mandinka face based on phenotype. Now, who we talk about with phenotype with Negroes in America? Johann Blumenbach. Pseudoscience. Samuel Morton. Carl Linnaeus. Write these names down. This was the early era of pseudoscience, because now these Europeans are trying to classify Negroes based on phenotype. That means your facial structure, wide nose, thick lips. And that's what he just said to her. Oh, that's Mandinka face. And kids decided his ass straight real quick. I ain't from no Africa. She went back to her great grandmama. And don't get it twisted. Roots, the movie, took place in the 1800s. Roots had nothing to do with the colonial period. This is not the colonial era. Roots is 1800s, people.
Right.
12 Years a Slave, 1800s. Right. Django, 1800s.
Right. They're not showing you the 1600s.
No, because it didn't happen like that. Now watch this. This is another scene off of Roots. Check it out. Hold on, my bad.
This here is a Guinea man. They catch him running through the woods in Guinea. Master Reynolds brought him right off the ship. You keep waiting.
He said Master Reynolds brought him right off the ship. Why is the camera panning on these Negroes? And why is he telling them, y'all never seen an African before? What the fuck? Then who these motherfuckers are? They're Indians, or so-called Indians. This is a labor camp. This is a work camp that you call a plantation. A plantation just means a planter. This is a factory, a company. Let's look at plantations as the corporate office. Let's try that.
Facts.
For us.
And I want to add on that they have Planters Peanuts, right? And they have a store called Trader Joe's. So the Europeans were planters and traders. They were planters of peanuts and things of that, tobacco, and they were traders of furs, and they were traders of exact like pelts and furs and whatnot. That's why you have Trader Joe's. There was Trader John, there was Trader Bob, there was Trader Bill. And so exactly like MOI is saying, these plantations are where the planters were. That's it.
Come on.
Say, hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right. Say,
so listen.
Yes, and trappers. I'm sorry. And they were trappers. They got us calling ourselves trappers these days, but those were the fur trappers, the pelt trappers, the coyotes, the foxes, the
Mink.
chinchillas, all of that. Trappers, traders, and planters.
Mink. Okay. Let me put my screen back up real quick because I want to push this point out there for them real quick. Hold on. Where is it? Oh, hold on. I gotta go back to share screen. It took me out of it. There we go. Listen up.
Away from it now, because you're wild African. Oh, yeah, you're a bobcat for sure. Now, some of you ain't never seen no African niggas before, so you just listen to old fiddlers now. This here Guinea man don't know English talking, so I'll be the one teaching him what it is he got to know. Come on, boy.
Y'all ain't never seen no African nigga before.
Right.
He's a wild African. Now the camera is panning. Watch this. I'm gonna teach y'all something in these movies. Hold on. Let me pause the sound right quick. Now, in the scene, the camera is panning past the women, and they have on those bonnets. Those on what's called tangent laws. They had to cover their hair. Now, the little children right there, they call them pickaninnies.
Pickaninnies.
Now, the women they're gonna pan across with them things on their head, those are the turbans. They made right there. That's called the tangent laws. They told them to wrap their hair up, that long ass hair, wrap it up.
The bonnets in the airport.
This was all a law. And none of those people you seen in that scene were slaves. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, were slaves, unfortunately, but they were not African. Roots, although the movie itself was fucked up, they thought enough to put a little bit of information in there to make it distinctive, but you had to know what was going on. Now, watch this. I got one more clip to show y'all. Check this out. Is it shared? Yeah, it's right there. There we go. Now, this is 12 Years a Slave. Remember, I'm telling y'all, all these movies are taking place in the 1800s. The only movie they can show you from Africa's coming from Africa to the Americas was Amistad. That's the only movie you got from Africans coming from Africa to the Americas. And Amistad, in the movie and in real life, was an interception from pirates down near what's called today Puerto Rico or Rich Port.
Right.
And that ship was boarded, and he brought back 19 Africans to Fort Comfort, Virginia, aka Hampton, Virginia.
Right.
And one of the women were pregnant with a baby. She had the baby 4 months later. Look it up. That baby is the first African American. If you want to be technical, that baby she had in Hampton, Virginia is the first African American. Those are the only Africans that came here in the 1600s to North America. You have to be careful and ask the question, which America did they come to?
Right.
And as I keep telling y'all, anytime the brothers and sisters, and that's why I call it barbershop talk. They're just talking. Anytime they say the Africans came out of Africa to America, ask them when. Ask them when, what year. Anything before 1789, they're lying. Anything after 1808, they're lying. 1808, it was outlawed. Because what happened after 1808 and 1832, the domestic slave trade happened. And that's what Roots is showing you. That's what 12 Years a Slave is showing you. That's what Django is showing you. That's what the movie Butler is showing you. The domestic slave trade. That's when they tell you that Negroes ran north for freedom. No, Negroes, they were from New York. They were from New Jersey. They were from Boston. They was running back home. And because they kept trying to escape, they was classified as drapetomania, the urge of wanting to escape. So when you watch these movies and you see Negroes in bondage and shackles, those were the Negroes who kept trying to run away. Those weren't the slaves. The slaves was walking around in the plantation who did not try to run away. The ones who kept trying to run were not from there. Those domestic workers you see in those movies, I'll show you. Now, this scene right here, had I not told you that this was the second slave trade, you would thought this was the African slave trade. Watch this. They're on a slave ship, supposedly. This is not a slave ship. This is a schooner. They're kidnapped. They're working as stevedores right now.
Right.
Or seamen.
Seamen, right.
Better off. Better than us.
Better off.
The same way that the Moors had the Europeans on the ship.
There they go. That's in the Atlantic Ocean, off the coast of DC. They're going down. They're sailing down to New Orleans. Check out the next scene.
I don't see him. Clemens? Clemens Ray! Clemens! Mr. Ray, who's in charge here? I'm the captain. I'm Mr. Jonas Ray. My solicitor has documentation verifying the Negro known as Clemens Ray as my property. I know.
The Negro known as Clemens Ray is known as my property. Property. They're on a port. That's in New Orleans. That's not Virginia. That's not anywhere else in your mind you thinking slaves came to. They brought these Negroes from Washington, D.C., New York, from the north, and they brought them down to the south. Now he's coming to get his slave or his property back because he was kidnapped. The only way you can get this type of access under what's called documentation or freedom papers or manumission.
Yeah.
Watch this.
Know nothing of this arrangement. You are ordered to return that property immediately. I'll be charged with thievery. Free him.
Now, those white boys on the ship, especially the one in the back with the hat on, those were Irish seamen, workers.
Yes. Indenture.
It's in the movie. Hold on. Oh, they ain't gonna show the whole part, but at this scene right here is when he's sitting there, he realized he really been kidnapped. The next guy approaches and he calls all those supposed slaves by another name. He don't stand up. And when he goes to stand up and dress himself, he tells the white slave owner, my name is, and the white guy slapped him and changed his name. Where have you seen that scene before? In Roots.
Kunta.
The changing of the name, the disconnection of the inheritable assets of the land. They disconnected you by your birthright. Malcolm already told you that.
Facts.
Now, this is the 1800s. Albert Plecker comes and seals the deal with the House of Interior and disconnects you by bloodline. And then we get to Alex Haley, the 70s, the movie 70s of Roots, you coming out of Africa. So at this point, let me show you what happened to our people at this point. Because I was with everything the good brother was saying. I'm like, yes, I can't wait to show the receipts behind what he's saying. This condition right here, we talked about it 1,000 times on here. Psychoneurosis. This is the mental condition that happened. It's a mental disorder affecting the spirit and personality motives of the action of Negroes who have failed to rid themselves of the psychological ills they have occurred with their collective experience with foreigners, marked by distorted ideals of self and others. Psychoneurosis results in unnatural patterns of perception, logic, thought, speech, behavior, and emotional expression. It is accompanied by various other unnatural dispositive manifestations, such as, but not limited to, self-group depreciation, the champion of non-Black ideas, conversion of non-Black religions, xenophilia, Anglo-centric xenophilia, cognitive dissonance, sexual deviation, escapism, dual or double consciousness, conflicting loyalty, and unscrupulous liberalism, differing in degrees of severity from individual to another. That's the condition that movies like Roots gave us. Because nobody teaches us that actually the slave trade started in the Americas, from the Americas, under what's known as the Indian slave trade. Nobody talks about the Indian slave trade.
Nobody.
The Portuguese, the Dutch, the conquistadors, this is what they were doing long before the 1600s. Columbus came over here 4 times. And then finally, in the 1500s, you get your first major wave of Europeans bringing Negroes out of Africa under contract by John Hawkins, by Queen Elizabeth I. John Hawkins was the first contracted merchant to bring human cargo across the seas. That's facts. So this out of Africa theory has to be alleviated to our people, because then I haven't even got to what's his name? Boaz, Mr. Boaz. The out of Africa theory comes out of this white philosophical pseudoscience movement from the late 1800s to the mid 1920s, all the way back to 1923, 24, Dr. Leakey, when he discovered Afro robustus or Zanthropus. These were you're going to see archaeologists, anthropologists trying to justify the origin of Negroes. How many Indians were captured and traded? Let's look at it real quick. It says between 1492 and 1880. 1880 is about 20 years from the 1900s. So up until the 1880s, this is how many? Between 2 and 5.5 million Native Americans were enslaved in Americas, in addition to 12.5 million African slaves. Those 12.5 million African slaves went to a place called Brazil, South America. How many African slaves were brought into South America?
According to
12
Wikipedia,
million.
after the conquest of Latin America by the Spanish and Portuguese, of the nearly 12 million slaves that were shipped across the Atlantic, over 4 million enslaved Africans were brought to Latin America. Roughly 3.5 million of those slaves were brought to Brazil.
So out of that same 12, I'm going to go back to the screen before. Out of that same 12 million we just saw, 4 million were brought to Latin America. 3.5 million of slaves were brought to Brazil. So 4 from 12 leaves us about 7-8 million to spread out through the islands in North America. Let's go back. Between 2 and 5.5 Native Americans, between 12.5 million African slaves. The 12 million number stays consistent from both sources. But out of that 12 million, only 4 million were brought to Latin America and 3.5 were brought to Brazil. Word problem. 3.5 plus 4, that's 7.5 million Africans were brought to either Latin America or to places like Brazil. 7.5 minus 12 million, that's the differentiator you have between the islands in North America. Not very many when you do the math. However, 2 to 5.5 million Native Americans were already traded from 1492. You don't hear about the first African slave ship supposedly to 1619.
Yes, sir.
Almost a 200-year difference.
Let's
go to here real quick. Let me go to this real quick and I'll pass the mic.
Yes, sir.
Where we at? Let me present one more thing. Where that was that? Here we go. Once again, this is the only slave trade. If you're a so-called Negro in North America, you should go research and be concerned with as of right now. This is the only slave trade that nobody knows about in North America. They're so caught up in the African slave trade, they know nothing about domestic slave trade. The domestic slave trade was a system that facilitated the transfer of enslaved people. Now, these people are under what's called enslavement. These are not slaves. Slaves and enslavement are two different things. What's the difference? I'm glad you asked. Enslavement is a system. That's a systematic situation. That means they had time to practice. Kind of like in North America, it was called colonialism. In Africa, it was called neo-colonialism or new colonial. They had mastered it by then. This is a mastered system they put in place by then. This is the 1800s, by the way. 1808, you can't bring no more Negroes out of Africa to the Americas. It's outlawed. International maritime law. Were they doing it? I'm pretty sure they were. But if you were caught, severe penalty. After 1808, domestic slave trade started on top of what's called slave farms. The breeding farms also start
right
at that time because they can't bring no more Africans out of Africa to the Americas. So now they're just swapping them out between the islands in North America and in North America between the colonies at this time because they haven't got out west yet, family. They're not 48 states yet. This is 1808. We don't go out west until around 1849 during the gold rush. Although the Treaty of Paris was already in place in the 1700s, giving them dominion to go out west under the Treaty of Paris in the 1700s. This is prior to 1776. So now they're going out west. I'm sorry, before they go out west, they only have the 13 colonies. They just decided to make a slave state under what's called the 3/5 Compromise, or the Missouri Compromise, sorry. So they're plotting to go out west. They haven't gotten to Texas yet. They got New Orleans. They got New Orleans because the French bought New Orleans from the Spanish and then sold it back to America. So all along places like Delaware, down to places like Arkansas and Louisiana, that all belonged to the French. The French had who they call fur trappers, all the way up to Canada. This is where you get Lewis and Clark, who were agents. Lewis and Clark were agents, going out scouting the land to see where the best beaver fur was. Mink. They hunted the mink almost to extinction in Canada. But they owned all that territory out west. Moving along. For enslaved people, their life was uprooted the instant their enslaver decided it was time to make a change. This traumatic process broke up enslaved families and created enduring harm. This is the only slave trade that they show you in America. But somehow your mind is still fused to Africa. This has nothing to do with Africa. Even the images, watch this. Even the images they show you. These people right here, I keep saying, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it one more time. These people right here are at work. They're at work. No, man, those are not slaves. They're just at work. Because I could teach you about sharecropping and tenant farming. Not the same thing. These are sharecroppers. They show you pictures, actual photos from the 1800s of sharecroppers, and show you cartoon depictions from the 1700s. And in your mind, they're all the same thing because you don't know any better. We have to study timelines. This map is the domestic slave trade 1808 to 1865. This is the Atlantic slave trade right here. And they were not on slave ships. They were on schooners, small frigates, fast boats. No giant slave ship got involved. And when they show you pictures of the babies being ripped out of the mother's arms on the auction block, again, that's the domestic slave trade. Auction blocks were not around during the 1600 African slave trade. They had no need to auction nobody off. They just took your ass under war acts. In fact, in Africa, they walked chained together to the shore. They told you that. They have to auction these Negroes off in the 1800s in America because this is under a whole other title. They're now classified as property. And you just can't snatch nobody property. I showed you in the movie just then. The guy came and got his property back. Hey, that's my Negro. Give him back. Here's his birth certificate right here. He's mine. I bought him. 1800s. So we have to get in our mind the timelines. We're talking about Roots, 12 Years a Slave, Django. It doesn't matter. 1800s. There's nothing they can show you from the 1600s or 1700s that should make you believe you came out of fucking Africa. I passed the mic.
Crazy shit, crazy. Check this out, family. We covered this in the last show that we did, and we'll revisit it. This is a very instrumental war that we was not taught about in school. They glossed over it, but this has huge implications as to what took place in the over in the north and whatnot. You know what I mean? And things took place in the north, and then it began to trickle down into the south. But King Philip's War was a disastrous event that tore New England apart, right? A great deal of shocking information is enveloped in this piece of history. So this is one of the bloodiest wars in American history, yet and still It's covered up because they don't want you to know about what took place, okay? Beginning in 1675 and encompassing a little over a year, King Philip's War destroyed New England and what would become, it was not this prior to it, okay? As a result of them losing the war, it became Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Maine. A native confederacy led by Metacom, also known as King Philip, would face off against English settlers in a battle to the death. Check out these 10 shocking facts about King Philip's War. Okay, so King Philip's father saved Plymouth. All right. Remember when they came here as trappers, as planters and shit like that, they did not know how to survive the land, especially they did not know how to survive through the winter. Okay. So Metacom's father was the sachem or the chief in the years before Metacom's reign. His father, Massasoit, is remembered today not only for his efforts in maintaining peace with the English settlers who landed at Plymouth. Remember, Malcolm X said, "You didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on you," right? So the English settlers who landed at Plymouth in 1620, often known as the Pilgrims, right? These are the aliens. These are the migrants. These are the quote unquote colonizers, right? And he helped save their lives. This is how allegedly Thanksgiving is started. Massasoit and his people shared techniques for hunting, growing food, and fishing that the settlers lacked, enabling them to survive in this new wilderness. Despite this support, 44 of the 105 pilgrims died during the winter of 1621, but it is highly likely that number would have been increasingly larger without Massasoit's support. Primary sources indicate that Massasoit was among those present at the harvest feast that would later become known as the First Thanksgiving. Unfortunately for all parties involved, this amity would not last, and just a few short decades later, the relationship would decay into bloodshed and mistrust. I wonder why. Special laws applying only to natives increased the tensions. Okay, so they started putting out special laws. Their rights to own firearms and other objects were severely restricted and monitored. Who does that sound like? Some areas had curfews or restricted movement of indigenous people between certain areas. The goals of these laws was likely multifaceted. It allowed white colonists more control over their indigenous neighbors, and it provided the colonists with a way to confront their fear of the unknown, a culture they knew little about. In fact, the questionable conviction of 3 Wampanoag men for the murder of John Sassamon by a white jury would be the kindling that finally started the fire of King Philip's War, right? The fight went as far north as Maine. Though a great deal of the fighting centered around Plymouth Colony, the devastation of King Philip's War spread throughout New England. As far north as the coast of Maine, the fighting was vicious. For example, the entirety of the Wakely family was murdered in a native raid of their home in Pegisquat in what is now Topsham, Maine, in September 1675, while concurrent struggles took place to the south. While the bloodshed in Maine paled in comparison to some other areas during the war, it is important not to discount it. There were 13 English settlements in Maine when the war began, many poorly equipped military. The majority of the action in Maine would be focused in 1675, despite the war carrying through the late 1676. Though casualty figures vary widely, low estimates considered that King Philip's War in Maine resulted in 50 dead English settlers and 90 natives killed, not to mention the dozen of destroyed properties. King Philip and his brother were named after historical icons. King Philip's given name was not Philip, but Metacom or Metacomet. His older brother, Wamsuta, was known to the English as Alexander. However, these English names did not necessarily result from colonists trying to anglicize their names out of convenience. Philip and his brother asked for English names as a gesture of goodwill towards their neighbors to maintain their father's legacy of peace. These names originated in ancient history, honoring Philip II of Macedon and his legendary son Alexander the Great. King Philip's war was the bloodiest in U.S. history. While the war had momentous effects on colonial policy and changed the dynamic between settlers and indigenous people in America for eternity, what is often most remembered for is the bloodshed that enveloped it. By percentage of population, King Philip's war was the bloodiest in U.S. history. Thousands died, with total estimates varying considerably. You know, when they say that, it's a goddamn massacre. It's damn near a Holocaust. However, it is believed that native casualties were at least double that of the colonists. Not only did people die from battle, but they also died from disease and starvation associated with the conflict. In addition, thousands of native people were sold into slavery during and after the war. Dozens of New England villages were completely destroyed and others were damaged extensively.
Told y'all.
Yes. Let me.
And but I want to add some more value to that same point. Dealing with the same time period, I just want to add a little bit more to it. Now, as the brother was telling you, King Philip's War, Chief Metacom,
yes,
which were I want to show you who the people are. The Wampanoag tribe.
Yes, the Wampanoag.
Who are the Wampanoags, Minister? I'm gonna show you. And this wasn't the end of the war, too. I'm gonna fast forward you all the way to another part of the war. These Europeans have been in contact and dealing with our people for a long time.
Very long.
Very long time. Very long time. Years. Those treaties are not treaties. Those treaties are contracts.
Facts.
Those are contracts. Now, let me fast forward. The beginning of the Indian War, 1600s, all the way through the 1700s, all the way to the 1800s. Let me show you. Hold on. Let me show my screen. The last Gullah War. They're talking about the Gullah, the Geechee Gullah. I'm going down the whole entire coast from the Wampanoag to the Pamunkey right there in Virginia. Yes. Wampanoag, a little further, Massachusetts, right? Come all the way down to Virginia. We're dealing with the Geechee Gullah in Carolina. We're dealing with the Yamacraw, right there in Yamacraw, and the Yamansi. Now, the Cimarron or Seminoles is an amalgamation of the Gullah, the Maroon, and the Yamacraw. That's who they are. It says the documented summarized the Gullah War, a series of battles and rebellions led by enslaved Africans and Native Americans between 1739 and 1858 to resist slavery and white supremacy in North America. 1739 to 1858. Write that down. Prior to 1858, what did we get? We get the Indian Removal Act. Where are they removing these Indians from? Georgia, Alabama,
Carolinas,
and Mississippi.
Yes. That's Andrew Jackson and them niggas.
Watch this. They didn't have any charter set up in Georgia yet until this guy right here comes along, James Oglethorpe. You see the little brother right there with the blue coat on talking to him? You see the dark-skinned people behind him right there?
Right.
That's Chief Tamachichi and his tribe. They took him over to Europe. James Oglethorpe took him to Europe. and they got to sign them contracts. Watch this. In 1732, this is when James Oglethorpe founded the colony of Georgia. He got permission from King George, and in a commemoration, he named this territory Georgia. 1732. We haven't got to 1776 yet. Tomorrow's Independence Day. Keep up with the dates. 1732, this happens. This is his encounter with Chief Tamachichi. Now, the brother just showed you about 84 years prior to that, they were up north doing the same thing. It says, June 9th, 1732, the Crown granted a charter to trustees. Granted a charter to trustees. What is a charter? What is a trustee?
Right.
That means there's some estates somewhere that belong to somebody, don't belong to somebody.
Right.
Establishing the colony of Georgia, Oglethorpe himself led the first group of 114 colonists on a frigate called the Anna. That's what you see in the movies. Those are frigates and schooners, not slave ships. Big difference between a frigate.
Facts.
I was in the Navy. I'm prior Navy. I know what a frigate is. Frigates and schooners landing at the site today, Savannah. Savannah was a major port. Before they can get into Savannah, they was actually out in what's called the Gullah Sea Islands. Now, Savannah was a major export for cotton out of Georgia later. The port of Savannah got shot down under what was known as the Ironclad Wars a little bit later, probably 100 years, 130 years from 1732, it pops off. The point I'm making is, on a certain war power acts coming from the Indian Wars, really it's called the 100-year Indian War. That's what you find. This is when so-called Indians was fighting back from being traded, snatched up, kidnapped. Later in the same year, 1732, James Oglethorpe encounters Chief Tamachichi. Once James Oglethorpe gets the charter and swindles Chief Tamachichi, watch this, Indian Removal Act.
According to Library of Congress research guides,
Now,
the
Indian Removal Act, you're going to continue to see the same territory, the Southeast region. I showed you earlier the domestic slave trade, which took place in the Southeast region.
Right.
Everybody, grandma, I don't care where you're from. Your great grandma, great somebody, got some people down here in this area down here. And what they wanted to do was to push these Negroes, so-called Indians, Chief Tamachichi, the Yamakra Indians, the Yamansi Indians, the Coweta Indians. Down here you had the Miamians. Later the Seminoles or Cimarroons, the Gullah Geechee right here. South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia right here. You have the Pamunkey right here. They push all these so-called Negroes back off the land this way.
Right.
It's called the Trail of Tears.
Right.
And the Trail of Tears is also known as the Indian Removal Act.
Right.
Now, the Indian Removal Act was signed into law by President Andrew Jackson. Prior to him becoming President Andrew Jackson, he was Colonel Andrew Jackson.
Right.
The
warmonger.
The War of 1812 gave him the catalyst to go to the rank of general. The United States, for the first 16, 17 presidents, were all generals, colonels, commanders-in-chief, literally, of army brigades, because they overtook the country that way. George Washington was a general, not a politician.
Can I jump in right there real quick and just share something with you? Absolutely. So, of course, you know, the ethos and the motto is to add value. So I did a video called How We Got Free, Gullah Wars, where I reference Negroes and Seminole War is what those so-called Indian wars were called. This is from 1835 to 1842, which is actually a 100-year war, but I digress. So it says, but Major General Thomas Sidney Jessup, who was in command in Florida, this is where a large part of this is taking place, during its most crucial period, announced emphatically late in 1836, this, my friends and family, is a Negro, not an Indian war. I yield the floor.
Well, this is also facts. So let me go this real quick. Great point. Let me share this. So when we tie the history line from the first contact with Chief Metacon, and we tried all the way down the coast. Our brother just said on my on my TikTok, follow the map. You follow the map all down the East Coast, family, all the way down to Georgia, to Florida. Those were all was called the Gullah Wars or the 100-year Indian Wars, all the same wars where these Europeans began to simultaneously attack the indigenous inhabitants of North America, a strategic attack. Now, 1600s, you don't hear too much about it. Not from the Europeans, because the first ones to land in America, according to their history, were not war people. Those were the Calvinists, the Puritans, the Quakers, and the Quakers under William Penn,
Yes.
the Brownists, and the Pilgrims. Those were just religious groups. Those religious groups that first came to America in the early 1600s, supposedly 1619, they were evading religious persecution. What happened in Europe prior to them coming in 1619, you had what was called the King Henry Bible, known as the Geneva Bible. King Henry died. A new seat had exchanged from the prince, who was the Prince of Wales, and the King of Scotland, James. The Bible was rewritten and republished, dedicated to him. The Puritans signed a 35,000 person petition. The Puritans did to change the Bible. Once the Bible was changed and put into circulation, supposedly, the Puritans got pissed off and was offered an opportunity to come to North America under what was called, let me show you, the Colonial Project. The Colonial Project, this is not it, sorry. The Colonial Project was founded by European capitalists. And these European capitalists only was called the Virginia Company and the Philadelphia Company and the Indian Tea Company. They had a grand idea. Well, listen, if you go over there and you settle the territory and you survive, we'll give you an acre or two. And what sets up the catalyst for them to come in the first place, and the brother know is the Doctrine of Discovery sets that up in 1489.
Yes.
Then 1492, Columbus comes over here. Then the Europeans started coming. So it's an entire timeline, family, is my point, that you have to follow. And when they began to trade so-called Native Americans as slaves back over to Europe, that was the first slave trade, taking them from here over to Europe. Okay, I wanted to put that point out there, brother. I give the floor.
I'm gonna share this real quick, this video that I have to put into further context what it is that you're building on. And this is about what they call the West Indies. Let's check this out.
Great grandfather financed this ship to Liberia, Africa.
No, not that one. Let me see.
That's a good one too to bring up.
No, that definitely is. I'm gonna bring that one after this one.
For sure.
Check this one out.
The question is, what is considered West India? The answer is the West Indies, including part of Virginia, North Carolina, East Florida, South Carolina, West Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, and the Gulf of Mexico, with the part of the coast of South America from the Bay of Honduras to the mouth of Orinoco. It cut off. So basically all of America, okay? From top to bottom, over in the West Indies, the West India Islands, okay? So now we're going. Let's check this out. So we're going to walk over here again to the Library of Congress. A scene in the West Indies showing, remember I was talking about the natives, right? Natives on the beach with a British sailor, okay? So they distinguishing between who and who's who, okay? And 3 large casks. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Casks. And 2 ships in the harbor. Again, see the picture right here. We're going to click on that.
Smoking that good. And then let's check this out right here. This is the Liberia. I don't know what's going on, but the video ain't playing.
His name was Jesse Green, and after enslavement, he saved enough money to send some Black Americans to Africa. My third great grandfather financed this ship to Liberia, Africa. His name was Jesse Green, and after enslavement, he saved enough money to send some Black Americans to Africa. The amount he saved up with his turpentine business was over $15,000. That's over $500,000 in today's money. My grandfather and his good friend Oscar C. Wigg owned hundreds of acres in the Wiregrass area of Georgia, and the Wiregrass area has hundreds of pine trees, and with these pine trees, they made turpentine. Turpentine was one of the biggest chemicals in demand at that time. Even Picasso talked about finding cheap turpentine. So here is the New York Times article reporting the event. So let's notice a few things. It says 311 colored immigrants. It does not say Africans going back home. That's peculiar. And it also says that the government offers 25 acres of land for each immigrant. Is that how Native Liberians think of land ownership? Did any of my relatives take the opportunity to colonize Liberia? Yes. Moses Green jumped at the opportunity, but he did not like it and came right back. He did lose his child in the process. All this happened when Marcus Garvey was only 9 years old. I use this story to say that my family has passed this story down to me to tell me to stay right here in America because this is where I'm from.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would hope that more family members who, you know, may have Masonic grandfathers, who were secret holders, you know, who were oath takers, Boule, you know I'm talking about, you know, you could kind of tell who their offspring are these days. You know, they have traits, they have certain type of, you know, just telltale signs. I would hope that those people would begin in this age of information to get on board with the flow of things, you know what I mean? Because the flow of things in the past 20 years has been some unprecedented revelations in terms of information, and it shouldn't be those of us from the trenches out here shining lights. We need some of those privileged kids to step forward, some of those Jack and Jill kids, some of those offspring of the Boule to begin to reveal as well, you know what I mean, to make our job more easier, because they do have some of the keys and they're sitting on a lot of information. Trust me when I tell you, okay, they're the holder of a lot of secrets, the Eastern Stars, the Masons and stuff like that. And don't resist, you know what I mean, give it up, you know what I mean, because our people suffer and they perish from a lack of knowledge, and the gig is up. You can't hold this spell on us anymore. It's over, you know what I mean. So many people have perished because of the lies, and it's time to give it up. So that would just be my word of advice to people that are out there.
Now I want to camel back on that, because as you guys well know, I'm of the Masonic order. It's kind of like a once a Marine, always a Marine situation, whether you retire or whatever the case is.
Indeed.
You guys know that I did the 32nd past master, past patron of the Eastern Star chapter. I'm a
32nd, 43rd, and 9th degree under the ancient Mizraim rite out of Newark, New Jersey, or Grand Temples in Cairo, Egypt, of the ancient Mizraim rite. Funny thing is, when I tell that to Negroes, they give me a crazy look. I never heard of, yeah, man, it's 360 degrees, man. Quit playing with those 33 degrees. You're barely above freezing. And I can tell you this for myself from being in the order.
Yes.
There are no secrets that these black Negroes have. Zero.
They say they had secrets on how to flip a barbecue, though. You know what I mean?
Listen.
On how to flame broil some barbecue.
I can tell you for certain, for sure.
Yes.
When I became the Grand Lodge Junior Warden, that means I was responsible for teaching 13 lodges in over 17 chapters.
Indeed.
Once a month. And when I was standing in front of the group teaching them, telling them who they were, and when I say it out loud, that means I said, you are Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff is not a spook. You're Hiram Abiff. This is who you are.
Right. You in a
what's
shallow
your
grave.
nationality? After that grand speech I gave, the Grand Master and the Grand Deputy stepped to me and said, don't teach them that kind of information. Only teach them what's in the ritual. And God is my witness. That's the day I walked away from fucking masonry, because I knew it was keeping our people asleep on purpose.
Right.
After that day, I walked away from it. I said, why can't I tell them who they really are? Because see, I was the one in the lodge teaching them within the Bible and in the ritual. That's really you. That's your story. You are the master builder. Before you was nothing was here. We are the master builders, the stone workers, the true masons. Fuck all this ritual shit. This is who you really are. From the beginning, this is who you are. And when I taught them brothers that, man, them brothers told me I cannot teach them that kind of information. And I knew then that the Masonic order itself was, like you said, one of those gatekeeping organizations from our brothers and sisters.
Indeed. And there are other organizations. Facts. There are a lot of it's a few other organizations that are, keeping the lights out. And like you said, the conversation about nationality is like garlic. I remember even speaking to brothers in the Nation of Islam about the fact that they have a Moorish history, and about the Moors in Spain, the Moors in Antigua. They was like, wait, what? This was early days in Harlem. I mean, now it's considered, it's on the internet, it's like kind of well known, but we're talking about the earlier days when I said we have an army of thousands of Islamic men who don't even know the original story about who they are pre 1492. Like, what are we doing? Where's the divide at? And it always perplexed me. But as I moved along down the road, I began to pick up these clues and figure out that there are a lot of people whose job it is to keep the lights out. So what we're doing today on the eve of 4th of July is attempting to break spells, because to be honest with you, the reason why these holy days remain an affliction on our people is because of our collective, quote unquote, the fact that we participate in the ritual, right? The more we don't participate in the ritual, the weaker it becomes. Henceforth, when you look at Columbus Day, when you look at Thanksgiving, when you look at all of these fake ass holidays that are falling by the wayside, it's because we're removing our energy. We're taking our battery pack away, and we have to do the same thing for the 4th of July. And, on days like the 4th of July, all we have to do is just teach. That's how you combat it.
No, these are facts. Hold on, because I got some people over on my TikTok I just want to address also.
Yes.
Hold on. I got somebody in the comments I want to address too. Because I'm going to tell y'all something. CRUMB ignore y'all. I don't ignore y'all. You want the special attention? You want the special attention today? I got time. And I'm gonna put a dunce hat on your head too. And give you that word. I am not an Israelite or a Moor. You are all foreigners to America.
Here they go once again. King Phillip's war. You know what I'm talking about? They don't learn.
Oh boy. All right. Israelites. Moors. Moors are Israelites. Moors are Israelites. According to what is taught in the Moorish Science Temple, you are a
Yes.
descendant of the ancient Moabites.
Yes, you are.
Who are the Moabites? The Moabites are the descendants of Lot. Who is the descendant of Lot? Abraham. Abraham, yes. Abraham and Lot. Abraham is Lot's uncle. Abraham go on to have his first son, Ishmael. Ishmael had 12 tribes. Of the Ishmael 12 tribes, his son Kedar ends up becoming the progenitor for all the Muslims, supposedly, and the bloodline of the Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salam. That's the Ishmaelites. Ishmael's nephew, Jacob, because Isaac is his brother. Stay with me. He's the progenitor of the Israelites, supposedly. Now, Jacob's son, what's his name? Joseph, goes and marries an Egyptian. The Egyptian gives birth to who? Ephraim and Manasseh. Jacob welcomes Ephraim and Manasseh into the family. So Ephraim and Manasseh are also Israelites, even though they're Egyptian. And they're really not Egyptian because the Egyptians biblically are Mizrahites. And the Mizrahites are just the children of who? Noah or Noah. What's my point? It's all one big ass family.
My
It's
million
the
dollar.
same.
My question to you is, who is being slain in Palestine right now?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Can we mention Palestine on live, CRUMB? Can we mention Jews on
Nah,
YouTube?
we really can't. Not on Laya Cohen's platform. We have to be we have to walk. Yeah,
boy.
'cause we got to walk on eggshells. But
Boy, that shit is down. But I get what you're saying.
I would highly encourage the Moors, you know what I mean, to really step it up and stand on something, because y'all have been very quiet during the genocide of your people, bro. Shit it's disturbing me, you know. Why wear the fez if you're not gonna teach the people? You know what I mean? There's literally a genocide it's some moves being made right on that land, and it's tying right back to you if you claim that you are who you say you are. So I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Well, you know, I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Yes. Because
there were some Moors in that time period who were doing some stuff that they ain't had no business doing. They were much a part of the situation dealing with the House of Aragon and the House of Castile. A lot of those Moors stayed in Spain, became Moriscos.
The Conversos.
Conversos, and they began to assist the Spaniards. Spain had no navy. That was the Moorish fleet that they took over, which was named the Spanish Armada.
Mm-hmm.
Spaniards were not seamen or merchantmen by trade. Moors were seafarers by trade. They were the shipbuilders by trade.
And the Cartala, they had the maps.
Come on now. So the Europeans really didn't have an idea of what was over here. Remember, they thought it was flat. They stopped at about the Canary Islands. They didn't go no further than that. Somebody told them what was over here. They had no clue.
No, we built on that on the first show that we did at the threat and coerce of being beheaded, you know what I mean? And at the end of the swords, them niggas got on them ships and they took them Europeans where they wanted to go. That was one of the, as a result of the capitulation, that was one of the, you know, that was one of the tenets that they had to adhere to. So, you know, prisoners of war at the end of the day, conversos. You know, today being converted is not seen in the same light as being converted back then. It's almost like dropping your flag. It's something that you could not do. You could not just drop your Islamic faith and become a Christian. That meant that meant death, and that's what people chose rather than to have their heads on pikes and things of that nature. And like I said before, when you look at the invasions of what they call the conquistadors and whatnot, think Drake. Okay, think Aubrey Graham. The phenotypical as the amalgamated Moor, right? The Spaniard, the amalgamated one, though, because those were some of the ones who crossed. They were the ones who they turned on their fathers and defeated the Moors, their offspring. Right? The princes, the ones who came from the wombs of the Europeans, the concubines and whatnot. They came out of the harems. So their offspring looked like DJ Khaled, French Montana, and Drake. That's how they looked. They spoke Arabic. Some of them spoke in the Spanish tongue, but that's what they look like. And when you have stories of the conquistadors that were coming in St. Augustine, and they were coming to, they were with Pizarro and whatnot, they were amalgamated. They were mixed. Okay. Not all of them, of course, but they were not blonde haired and blue eyed like they depict them in the historical narratives only. They were mixed up.
Now, I like to also address the totality. So what I'm gonna do is share my screen real quick, because I think that only one part is told. When we hear the word Moor, we immediately think about the Iberian Peninsula and so on and so forth. There were people called Moors in the Americas prior to 7/11. 7/11 is a really relative time period, y'all. Let's go back into time, because we're still in North America. And this is mainly for I think it's a brother. The brother right here. I want to just tap in with him, because we did start with the 100-year Indian War, and we are talking about North America. So I want to bring it back home just real quick. These are the Moors. The Moors are the original inhabitants of North America. They come from the Oshitush, or a Native American tribe who lived in the northeastern Louisiana along the Oshitush River. Their name has also been pronounced Washita by English speakers. The spelling Oshitush, and the pronunciation Washita came about as a result of French settlers or French hunters, fur traders, let's be real, and their influence. Now, the Oshitush people, or the Washita people, first of all, they're the only people that I have seen. They're registered with the United Nations, United Nations number 21593. They're the oldest tribe from Louisiana, and they look like me and you. They come out of what's called the Mississippian culture.
According to Wikipedia, the
Mississippian culture, there's that map again, Southeast region. We never gonna leave this region. I'm not, because I'm from Georgia, born and raised. I'm never gonna leave this region. You get Georgia studies in 8th grade. It's that same map again I showed you earlier of that Southeast region. Same Trail of Tears. When they pushed the Negroes off the land down south and then tried to offer it to them back under the 40 acres of what was called General Order Number 15, which was vetoed 1 year later by President Andrew Johnson, the 17th president of the U.S. All this territory. Let's continue. They come out of the Mississippi culture. Prior to the Mississippi culture, you have what's called the mound builders. And the mound builders are not just only in places like Illinois, but it goes all the way down to Mississippi and Louisiana. There's an area called Poverty Point, Louisiana. And these are the oldest indigenous people in North America. And they link their heritage to a group called Moors, M-U-U-R.
Yes,
Moors.
Washita.
The Washita Moors, or Oshitush, is their original name. And these Oshitush Moors built pyramids Nah, minister, those are mounds. Nope, this is called a truncated pyramid. And the biggest truncated pyramid they built, we all should know, was Cahokia Mound. Oh, and now when the Illinois tribe came into that territory, they already stated this shit was already here when we got here. That's the Illinois tribe. The Illinois tribe, the Lakota, the Dakota, or who we call Pueblo Indians and TP Indians, they come from Asia, over on the Barren Straits by way of Ho Shan under the Ming Dynasty, who amalgamated with the Olmec. This is all written history. You can research, what's his name? They came before Columbus. Ivan Van Sertima speaks on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And many other white anthropologists have already accepted the fact, like, no, these people are the oldest people here. We have no other culture. There are no other artifacts that predates the Mississippian culture or the Oshitush people or what's called the Washita people of North America. If you know of an older civilization, please put it in the comments. I pass the mic.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's pretty much, you know, it is what it is. You know,
I mean, come on, man.
It is what I'm out here next to the Etowah Mounds in Georgia, just in Cartersville. I encourage everybody who is, you know, currently waking up to this information. First thing that you should be doing is to visit these mounds.
Yes.
And physically go there, stand on those mounds barefoot, do your meditations, you know, do your chants, do whatever your spirit compels you to do. First and foremost, lock in, because this is not done from the from your living room through a computer. That's not how you're gonna tap in. This information will be delivered to you, but it's really on you to really pick it up and take it and really go to these places and explore these places in real life. You know what I mean? Like for real. We were coming down here to Atlanta, I believe in 2010. We had a guest on Know the Ledge on Blog Talk, the brother by the name of first it was Hakeem Bey, then we had Horace Butler, When Rocks Cry Out. Then we had another brother named Umar, but not Umar Johnson. This was the brother who put out the poster with the 500 pyramids on it and whatnot. So it compelled us to begin to do these journeys and to really tap in. We went to Serpent Mound. We went to the Newark Earthworks out there in Ohio, which is very, very powerful grid. And then it brought us back to to Etowah over here in the in Georgia, you know, the North Georgia mountains. I know the first show we talked about the gold rush that took place in the North. That one of the reasons why the Trail of Tears even kicked off is because of the gold rush. And then they marched our people over into Oklahoma, which just so happens to be oil rich, mineral rich and whatnot. And then you have the story of the young sister who was the richest. She was the richest girl in the world at one point because of her oil wealth. And then you have the movie Killers of the Flower Moon, where they were knocking off the Osage tribe and whatnot. They showed the depiction of how they were, you know, they basically were wiping that whole tribe out for their oil wealth. And that's how these Europeans, these pilgrims, these aliens came over here and enriched themselves.
Goddamn flugeroids.
You said fluveroid? What'd you call them?
And then what they call CRUMB?
Yeah, flugelrod.
Flugerod, troglodyte. Yes.
Tamahu.
So, there we go. So, but let me ask you this question though. What's your take on? I'm trying to make sure I word this correctly. I've always took issue, and this is just of recent, because as you all know, I'm a founding member of Temple Number 14 out of Virginia Beach, Virginia, Moore Science Temple.
Yes. Islam.
I came in with so many questions, and the same thing that happened to me in the Masonic order. Basically, I was told to shut the hell up. happened to me in the Moorish Science Temple.
Right.
Because I ran up in the Moorish Science Temple with having all this information. I had already been a traveling man for, at that point, about 9 years at that point. And I noticed some of the same similarities in the Masonic Temple that they were doing inside of the Moorish Science Temple.
Religion.
The greeting. When the Moors greeted one another, it would be feet to feet, knee to knee, hand to back, mouth to ear, chest to chest. There was the 5 points of fellowship in the Masonic Lodge. There's a couple other things that I saw that took place. Because you remember, like, I'm fresh out the Masonic Lodge in the Shrine Temple. Like, I'm fresh out of this shit. Right. Nobody in the Moorish Science Temple had stepped foot inside of a Masonic meeting. It's just all speculation at this point about George Washington and the Fed. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? Right. And it's just a bunch of speculative history. I'm like, have any of you guys stepped inside of a lodge? And, y'all haven't? Then what are y'all talking about? You know what I'm saying? And I get the historic aspect of it, right? That's how Moors meet. Islam.
Islam. I can bear witness. I had not been in the Masonic Temple lodge, but I was in the Moorish Science Temple, and this is how we greeted each other. And I didn't know how Masonic it was until the Minister of Information said something. And I can also bear witness that he upset a lot of people when he said that. And when he started showing this stuff, a lot of people in the Moorish Science Temple got mad. But, you know, if you cross-reference, you're going to see the two fraternal orders to be very identical in practice, Islam.
And I guess my point is, it seems like the truth is okay until it ruffles the feathers of whatever organization. Now,
right.
I've come out of Otto's organization. I say come out. I mean, you know, brother, if you need some help, I got you. You ain't got to be associated with nothing. What you need help with, I got you. And I began to see the gatekeeping and just the pandering of our people in these organizations, man. And I'm like, damn, why can't they know that this is what it is? Or, oh, I know what I said too. I said Noble Drew Ali was a Freemason. Oh boy, they almost set my ass on fire in there. They almost set me on fire. But I saw how much dogma was around the ideology of Noble Drew Ali being the prophet or their prophet or our prophet at that time. And I understand the sentiments and, you know, what was attempted to be conveyed. And Allah sends a prophet to every nation before the great and dreadful day, so on and so forth. And I used to ask these Moors their opinions and their ideas and their thoughts about information, and they would not give me any other answer other than what was in the book.
The book. That's why I said a minute ago, religion.
I said, damn.
You know,
just like the Masons. Because Prince Hall Masons, for whatever reason, Prince Hall Masons feel like Prince Hall invented masonry for Negroes.
Right.
Like
they don't go beyond that.
No, they really, really believe that. And these Prince Hall Masons don't realize that you owe that to a Moor.
Right. My answer to that is indoctrination wherever you see it. Kudos to the independent researchers who have stepped out and done the research and challenged themselves to not be prisoners of dogma.
Oh, come on.
You know, and to not be quote unquote worshipers of man. And, you know, as a result of that, being independent researchers and, you know, handling things on your own fruition, you freed yourself. Because there are people in bondage, and they don't realize that they're under a sophisticated form of bondage right now. And I'll just leave it at that.
Now, to my Prince Hall, and we're gonna switch. I just wanted to get this out, man, because I think it's very important because we're talking about the same time period, y'all. This is 1783, not too long from 1765. Independence Day is tomorrow. I don't particularly celebrate it because I'm like, what the fuck are you celebrating? It's Europeans fighting Europeans. Like it's them being liberated from their slave masters over in Europe. Whoop-de-doo. Okay. But 1783. This is Angelo Solomon. This is the Masonic Moor. So I asked him, I said, if Noble Drew Ali wasn't Mason, what's the big deal? There's been other Masonic Moors anyway. And Masonry is our science anyway.
Right. We're the
Like,
grand architects.
Right. Masonry is Moorish science.
Yo.
It might be third or fourth grade, but it's part of the study. Then I remember, and I'll make a final point with this because we're gonna tie it back into the land. We're gonna tie it back into the indigenous people before we wrap it up. Where is it? Right here. Then I researched Noble Drew Ali's funeral. And all my Moors, I love y'all, and didn't change. Just eat the meat, spit the bone out. I can read this. Noble Drew Ali, his funeral was held at Pythian's Temple. I said, wait a minute. Pythian's Temple is a Masonic lodge. Why would they have Noble Drew Ali's funeral at Pythian's Temple and not at the Moorish Science Temple, at the building that they already had, or at least pass the review, or whatever the case is? Nope. His services was held at the Pythian's Castle, a Pythian's Temple. Sorry, the Knights of Pythians is a Masonic order because every Mason is entitled a Masonic burial. But that's not even the cool part. I found out about Noble Drew Ali because never going back to the land. What that flag called? The Confederate flag. Yep, we're going back this far. The Confederate flag has its roots with the legacy of Noble Drew Ali. I'm tripping. I'm not tripping. I'm gonna show you. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But just entertain the fool for 2 minutes. Entertain me for 2 minutes, family. I promise you. So this is what we know as the Confederate flag, better known as the Galactic Cross. That's what it is. It's called the Galactic Cross. This is not a flag of backwoods, tobacco spitting, hound dog hunting white people. If you truly believe you're from this land and you're part of this land, this is your flag that they adopted. And they had a whole flag capturing campaign going on. It is estimated that 500 to 544 flags were captured during the Civil War by the Union. The flags were sent to the War Department in Washington. The War Department becomes very, very important. The War Department is the issuing branch that gave you General Order Number 3, which is the letter that was read in Galveston, Texas by General George Granger that gives you Juneteenth. The War Department also issues General Order Number 15, which allotted 40 parcels of land to any returning Negroes, not the mule. The mule was never part of the deal. The only way they got mules, they had leftover mules from the Civil War they just passed out to till the land. That's all that was. Nobody ever got a mule promised in the pocket. The War Department also gives a budget for the Freedmen's Bureau, which is very important also. That's the War Department. The first flag, the Star Spangled Banner, 1861, that's not what we want to deal with. There are other flags I want to show you. Particularly, where is it at? There's a Cherokee flag. Look at those flags. The second national flag. Hold on, let me type this in. Give me a second. And when I came across this information, I said, holy shit, I wanted people to know this stuff, man. Drew Quitman. It pulls up Noble Drew Ali. Drew Quitman, a military and political leader of the Cherokee Coharie Nation. Eliza Turner Quitman, full-blooded Washita. These are the parents of Noble Drew Ali. These are his parents. I didn't write this shit. I'm not making it up. We can look into it to investigate. We owe that just to this for the sake of science. Let's look up Drew Quitman and see who Drew Quitman really was. Mind blowing, or maybe not. I thought it was for me. There we go. 1796 to 1865. Coherently, he died in 65 from, I think he had hypothermia or something in his chest. Was a mixed blood military political leader of the Cherokee Nation, born in 1796. That was around the times during the Indian Wars we're talking about earlier. The whole time I've been talking, I never left the 1800s. Y'all know that. I don't leave in the 1800s with him because this is the pinnacle point of information you guys need to know. 1600s to 1800s in order to understand how history was twisted, because we could do a whole other 2-hour live just on the Reconstruction era alone and what they reconstructed, because they didn't build shit.
We got to do that. Definitely.
Listen, they wasn't building anything.
No, they was reconstructing shit.
Literally.
Putting
Born in
the
96. Little is written about him until his company of the Cherokee immigrants, they call them Cherokee immigrants, from Georgia to Indian Territory. They're in Georgia. I told you we're not going to leave the Southeast region. He's best known for joining the Confederate Army at the outbreak of the American Civil War. He raised and organized and led the first Cherokee mounted rifle. Here we go right here. This is the flag. Look at that. It was the Confederate branch. These Cherokees were part of the Confederate Army. So that flag had nothing to do with no backwoods white people. I promise you. I can go on and on about this flag. All the way back to it was called the Galactic Cross, which was a symbol of a couple different tribes together. These white boys just adopted that flag because that flag saved their butts a couple times.
You got the DAR, Daughters of American Revolution.
Come on, bro.
Who was very instrumental in putting those statues up. And they were instrumental in, changing a lot of history around. So we definitely have to go back and peel back a lot of this pre-reconstructive history.
That's all I got. I don't want to go too deep up into it.
Oh nah, we gonna come back, like you said, with the
I want y'all to look into this,
thorough,
man.
with some thorough information about Reconstruction, Civil War, and a few other things that need to be put on record. So it's definitely time for that.
Listen, man, I appreciate everybody tapping in tonight, man, and rocking with us.
Yes, indeed.
500, 600 people tapping in tonight. Amazing. Appreciate y'all, man, tapping in. CRUMB, appreciate you hosting it, man. If you want, I can close it out. Any closing remarks, good brother?
Yeah. Initially, what we were sent here to do is to debunk and to re-educate the family out there about the roots, the uprooting of American indigenous history by way of propaganda through Hollywood, through an agent who goes by the name of Alex Haley, who plagiarized a European's fictional depiction of the slaves coming over here, and that is really the foundation of the spell that our people were put under, and they put us under that. You know what I mean? And consequently, the schools and all of these other quote unquote institutions who are all in bed with each other, they all work in tandem to continue to keep our people in the darkness. So we just wanted to turn the lights on. That is our independence. Our Independence Day is about freeing ourselves from mental slavery, freeing ourselves from this quote unquote generalized story that we all are the same and we all suffer the same fate and we all have the same quote unquote conditions, and that's furthest from the truth. Hopefully that will help people to see themselves in a better light and to begin to ask questions and do more research. We are not a monolith, and it's okay. It is okay. It's not a declaration against anybody. I am not trying to disrupt anyone's storyline or any of that. However, because I'm seeing the dysfunction multiply itself daily, something has to be done to whereas we just pump the brakes and say, skirt. Nah, we need more people. You know what I mean? This shit is deeper than rap. So let's continue to dig. Let's continue to peel back the layers, and let's continue to keep turning these lights on, because I'm sure tonight, if one person walks away benefiting from this, then our job was complete. So I want to say thank you for everybody. Make sure that y'all subscribe to Know the Ledger 444. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Show your appreciation by hitting that like button, and share this video as well. Share it like a rumor, and I'll land my plane.
Again, just coming back on what the good brother's saying, man. Share it. Thank y'all for tapping in. Appreciate you. If you felt like you got any information tonight on some stuff you don't know, and again, y'all gotta remember, CRUMB can contest to this. I've been talking this stuff since, I don't know, 2000 and something. 10 years ago, at least, a whole decade ago. So for me, and I'm pretty sure for the good brother Red Pill, this is repetitive information that we've already retained some years ago. We just try to do our due diligence by continuing to be the light to put y'all on game information. This is just information. I always ask y'all to take notes. Don't believe that I tell y'all. Go do your own research, and it becomes something you know, not what you heard. We appreciate it. CRUMB, you got anything before we tap out?
Yeah, I was going to say, Red, if you could also drop your Cash App, please. Family, MOI, you see his Cash App at the bottom. Red is about to drop his Cash App. Let's just give him just a second. We give Red just a second to drop his Cash App as well.
Take your time.
If you could, type that in the
Now,
comments.
here's what I always say. A lot of people go to college and pay $60,000 to $80,000 for information, and come over here on this platform and learn in a matter of 2 hours some shit they never heard of before. So I think it's worth something to bless myself and the good brother, because we're taking time out of our schedule. We don't need the money, but we'll take it. So we appreciate y'all on this beautiful Wednesday midday. Tomorrow's Independence Day, 1776. Some Europeans, let's go back, 1619. Some Europeans came over, decided to stay. They pitched a tent, built a couple log cabins, turned the water on. 1776, they began to rebel against their people who sent them over here in the first place, and they supposedly won their independence. Some people in some red coats came over to fight them, and those red coats had black people and white people in the mix.
The brutish Moors.
Come on. Prince Hall comes over with his slave master, because Prince Hall was a slave, indentured servant. His slave master, William P. Hall. Prince Hall happened to see these brothers who came over here with these Europeans. Prince Hall approached them, asking to join the lodge. They tell him that you have to be free. Free. In order to be a Mason, you have to be freeborn of lawful repute. Freeborn of lawful age and good repute. He was not. They told Prince Hall to go to Boston, Massachusetts. General George Brett, a Irish regiment, initiated Prince Hall and 14 other brothers into the lodge. But Prince Hall saw these brothers first, who are already over here. And I'm only making that point because that's the time period. The 1700s to the 1800s. That's the time period. The first black revolutionary who was fighting for civil rights, Crispus Attucks, was also shot in the 1700s. That's right. Civil rights was happening in the 1700s, not 1965 with Michael Luther King. Michael Luther King. Okay. Not his pen name, Martin. So thank you guys for tapping in. Appreciate it, man. This is good. This is good. This is great.
Yes, it was. I appreciate y'all, man. Always a pleasure chopping up game with the gods, you know.
Peace. CRUMB, you want me to sign it out or you got it? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'll close this out if that's okay.
Yep.
I want to say to the family, thank you so much. Wherever you're listening from, please hit the like button. Drop a comment, family. drop a comment, tap in, whether that just be a 000. You already know what it is. Smash that subscribe button, family, no matter where you're at. Show the family some support. Tap in with the Cash App, family. So with that said, I want to leave you the exact same way we came to you. I'm your humble brother, CRUMB, and you are now watching CRUMB TV.
You are now watching CRUMB TV.
You're watching CRUMB TV.
This is Prema Osset in Los Angeles, Leimert Park, and you are now watching CRUMB TV.
You are watching CRUMB TV.
And we're watching CRUMB TV.
You are now watching CRUMB TV. So subscribe.
I am the Grand Sheikess, Unity Temple number 80, More Science Temple of America, and you are watching CRUMB TV.
Yo, this is that kid 179. You are now watching CRUMB TV.
CRUMB TV.
Brother Red Pill representing Know the Ledge, one half of the Twin Pillars. I am here rocking with CRUMB TV.
No, you are watching CRUMB TV.
You can find me on CRUMB TV.
You can catch me on CRUMB TV.
This is Chief Colonial here at CRUMB TV.
I am Joy Allen of the Memoirs of a Karmic Dynasty in the CRUMB TV studio.
Honored to be on your program, brother.
Peace.
Peace.
CRUMB TV.